Welcome back to Sidebar here on Law and Crime. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks for joining us. And that little snippet of video that we just showed you is absolutely infuriating. I know as a mother, it's very hard to watch. It was from a daycare facility in Hamilton, Mississippi. This is where an employee at Little Blessings Childcare put on a scary mask back on October 4th and then went on to scare the young children in the room, making them cry. And as I told you, very, very hard to watch. So joining me to talk about this is Florina Altshiler. She's a defense attorney and former prosecutor who was part of the Special Victims Unit focusing on sex crimes, crimes against children, and homicides. Florina, welcome to Sidebar. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You know, WTVA TV in Mississippi, Florina, reports that 4 employees were fired. No charges have been filed, but the sheriff in that county is investigating. So I know you're a mom. How do you feel watching this video?
It's horrific. It's upsetting. It's disturbing. And under no circumstances is their behavior appropriate. However, is it criminal? Not entirely clear. Likely not criminal. Is it negligent? Absolutely. Was them being fired appropriate? Absolutely. I think that the child care center here is going to have some civil liability. I think that there very well may be appropriate civil lawsuits to come. But in terms of whether or not their behavior was criminal, as shocking and disturbing and inappropriate as it may be, I'm just not sure that it's going to rise to the level of the mental state necessary to support criminal charges here.
One of the things that I found interesting was apparently this was not the first time that something like this had happened. Apparently, there was another video, but the owner of the daycare facility said they weren't made aware of it until this came out. So let's watch just a little bit more of that video. Florina, you know, I know the sheriff says he is investigating, but I'm wondering to myself, what on earth what could be the charges? Unless this leads to finding additional information where maybe the children were, hands were laid on them or something to that effect. But I just can't imagine why anybody would think that that was a good idea. These are very, very young children, obviously toddler age, and they're sitting there just absolutely scared. And this person is going around the room, I mean, saying these things to them. Is there anything that you could think of, maybe a misdemeanor or citation where something would be appropriate?
If the sheriff finds evidence to support that the intent of this daycare worker was to harass, in other words, to annoy and alarm these children, then potentially there may be harassment violation level charges that can be filed against the daycare worker. But I think there's a strong defense here that it wasn't meant to annoy and alarm, that this is just age inappropriate behavior that was innocent on their part. And really, I think what it comes down to, despite the daycare owner claiming ignorance and claiming that they did not know, is a real failure to properly hire, manage, and supervise these workers. Because if the daycare owner did not know, they should have known. The daycare owner should know who they're hiring. They should properly train the people that they're hiring, and they should properly supervise the people that they are hiring. And so I think this is a blatant case of negligence, but negligence will lead to civil liability, not criminal.
And I know that you obviously you worked in the criminal courts. Obviously, you still do. Defense attorney, you worked as a prosecutor. But does the state get involved in this, or whomever, licenses daycare facilities? Do they come in and say, you know what, we really have to take a closer look because this is nuts?
And that's a great question, Angenette, because I suspect that's exactly what the sheriff is looking into with this prior complaint. So the question now becomes, What other issues existed? Is this a pattern of ongoing behavior? Perhaps there's other videos, maybe on social media. Perhaps there's reports that were filed internally. Maybe there have been complaints to their local Department of Health. And potentially, as a result, if this is an ongoing pattern, if these employees are being hired negligently, if they're not being properly supervised, the licensing that this daycare center has could be taken away. Um, they may need to shut down depending on what it is that's going on. Of course, if this is a purely isolated incident, maybe they'll be fined, maybe they'll be reprimanded, and that'll be the end of that. But if it's more than an isolated incident, which knowing now that there's a second video from before, potentially this really could be an ongoing pattern of poor supervision of their own employees.
Are these kids so young that maybe you hope they just get past it and don't remember it, or could this be something? Since you've worked with crimes involving children, is this something, even though it might not fit into the realm of a crime or fit that criteria, how kind of psychologically damaging could this be to a young child?
Well, this is psychologically traumatizing. Obviously, you can see that these children are frightened, they're crying, they're running away. It's so difficult to fully understand the impact that it has on children that young because children that young may not be fully verbal. They may be somewhat verbal, but lack the ability to form sentences and properly express emotions. And so we never will know the full effect of this. I would not be surprised if they're having nightmares. I would not be surprised if they're uncomfortable anytime someone opens a closet door now. And it's really unfortunate that the adults who are in this position of taking care of this vulnerable young population made the conscious choice to do what perhaps they thought was fun in the moment and really grossly disregarded the duty that they have to the children that are placed in their care.
It's actually very stunning. And we have, four employees who the TV station down there, WTVA, is reporting were fired. But, we can tell there are at least three involved. Whoever's holding the camera, we don't know if that's one of the people who was fired, but, you've got other daycare employees in the room. So I just can't imagine being the parent. If this was my child in that room or my children were in that room, um, I would have a really hard time. I wouldn't be taking my child back there. I can tell you that. I would hope I would have other options too. I think there are ways, we can impress upon people too that, there are ways to vet these places. And it's unfortunate because a lot of people don't have any other options. They may have to go to these places where they may not be the best facilities.
Yeah, depending on the geographic region, and depending on the resources available, and depending on the financial resources of the parents, some parents really have no other option. Working parents who need to go to work need a place to put their toddler before their school age. And unfortunately, sometimes the only place to put their toddler, if they don't have other family members who are available and able to take care of the child, is whatever place has an opening. Some daycare centers are booked out years in advance. And so you're either traveling 45 minutes in the opposite direction of where your job is to a daycare center that has availability, or you're going to the one place that still has an opening, which, may have an opening for a reason. No one else wants to go there. And that's really unfortunate because this isn't a matter of someone screwing up a fast food order. This is a matter of somebody causing psychological damage to a young child. And it's not a game. And these workers are treating it like this is just a big joke. And they're intentionally recording it, knowing what they're doing, as though this is part of this big joke.
And the entire video that we have is a total of about 1 minute 40 seconds. So who knows how long it actually went on after that? But it just to think that it went on at all is just really, really disturbing. Well, Florina Altshiler, former prosecutor, currently a defense attorney. Thanks as always for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for bringing these important issues to light.
And that's it for this edition of Law and Crime Sidebar podcast. It is produced by Sam Goldberg, Michael Deininger, and Logan Harris. Bobby Szoke is our YouTube manager. Alyssa Fisher handles our bookings, and Kiera Bronson does our social media. You can listen to and download Sidebar on Apple, Spotify, Google, and wherever else you get your podcasts. And of course, as always, you can watch it on Law and Crime's YouTube channel. I'm Angenette Levy, and we will see you next time.